The haters can say what they will. Best conference in America. 2022, 2021, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16. This is not a countdown. It's basically going back through the years in which the SEC has been football's best. Best in college football, there's no doubt about it. Welcome into our inaugural SEC live show. This is our SEC live show right here at the Voice of College Football. We plan on it, so you book it every Tuesday, noon Eastern time with you, taking your comments, your questions, your calls. So we will be looking in the live chat for your comments and questions. Of course, the Super Chat is available to you if you would like to support what we do here at the Voice of College Football and our 25 team channels. Truth be known, yes, about 15 or 16 are up and alive and running, rampant. The other ones we will work on at a later date, but hey, that's not too bad. 15 or 16 channels devoted to college football. All right, including our SEC channel, Alabama, Texas A&M, LSU, Auburn, Tennessee, Florida, and Georgia. Check them out. And especially our Georgia channel, we want to get that to 1,000 subscribers. So please subscribe to the Georgia channel. We may grab the link here at some point during the show and make it extremely easy for you because we know people are lazy. You're lazy. I'm lazy. We're all lazy, and we need the link, or we think we need the link. So we'll do that a little bit later. Again, please check out our various team channels, especially our SEC channel. But we do this every Tuesday right here on the main channel, talking SEC football, and we've even loaded up the shelf. So I even went into set design to make this just right for the SEC. There's our many SEC helmets. If you are offended that your team is not represented, send me a helmet. We will provide the P.O. box at some point. But we've got Georgia, Florida, Kentucky, Tennessee, Ole Miss, Alabama, LSU, Texas A&M. We are missing Arkansas. No Arkansas. No Vandy. No Missouri. No Auburn. I think that's it. No Mississippi State. So what you're going to see over the next few weeks, of course, we're diving into spring football. What you're going to see is us responding to your comments and questions. Of course, taking your phone calls. That's the way we prefer it. Would love for you to take the link that's been provided there in the live chat. Give me a call. Talk SEC football, any team, anytime, any subject, any topic. I've got my notes here. I am certainly geared and ready to talk myself for 2 hours plus, but we'll do it every Tuesday at noon Eastern time. You know what? We are going to start off our first SEC show. Our first team that we're going to discuss is going to be the Auburn Tigers. And you know who made that determination? It's our buddy Kyle Loomis from E2C Network. You can catch it right here on YouTube. Not just Auburn football, basketball, baseball, beyond the sports landscape to the entire Auburn community there. E2C Network. Kyle, thanks so much for calling in.
Thank you so much for the invite. I always love to talk, obviously, Auburn stuff, but SEC stuff too. We don't mind everybody else in the SEC. We just know that, unbiasedly, we are the best of the SEC, which is why we should start the show, right?
You especially don't mind them in years like 2010 and 2013. It's easier to put up with the smack talk then because it dies way down. But people have had a little fun at the expense of the Auburn Tigers here the last couple of years around the SEC and around the nation.
Yeah, it's been 2 years of illegitimacy and I shouldn't say illegitimacy. That first year under Harsin, we at least were in the conversation for part of the season, and it just fell off. I think when people witnessed that Mississippi State loss, where they came back, I think now I'm trying to forget it, but 28 points that they put up on us like in a row to retake the lead and then continue to push that lead out even further. I was at that game up in the upper deck watching it, and it was just a miserable experience to watch Mississippi State do. No offense to Mississippi State, but most years Auburn should be beating Mississippi State, especially at home. So hopefully with a new coach, a new direction, a new vision, maybe not even, I don't know if it'll happen this year or not, but hopefully we'll find more legitimate conversations that Auburn can be in the SEC.
A lot of fans have short memories, but Brian Kelly made a statement this week when addressing the potential 9-game schedule. And when he talked about playing the best, I came to the SEC to play the best. I think the second school out of his mouth was Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people might take a little exception to that and think, what's he talking about? But again, let's not live just in the moment in terms of recency bias. This has been a school that has proven to be one of the top 10 to 15 programs in the nation over decades.
Right.
And of course, national championship contenders many times.
Yeah, Auburn's always in the conversation for a variety of reasons. We do feel like we have something unique to offer students in general, but prospects that want to come participate in our sports here. There is a certain family element that obviously we preach. I know people roll their eyes when they hear us talk about it a lot, but I mean, it is real. And I think people have even said that. I've even had a Alabama fan, a good friend of mine. I've slowly worked him into being an Auburn basketball fan. And he just doesn't know that he's this close to converting fully. But it gets in your blood and you don't really realize what's happening by the time that you've bought into it. But just speaking to like the relevancy of Auburn in the conversation of the SEC, if you notice, when we have down years or periods, meaning multiple years, they don't last long. We usually jump right back up there. Now, obviously there's going to be some points in our history you can point to and say, well, that lasted a little bit longer than what you're saying. But Auburn, for whatever reason, is able to keep pace most of the time with the traditional powers, whether it was a Florida at a time, whether it's Alabama now, Georgia now rising. Obviously, it's getting a little bit harder with Alabama and Georgia rising to the level that they are. And that's, it's ironic that Auburn's able to stay relevant with their two biggest rivals being as powerful as they are right now. So it's a challenge, but usually we rise to the occasion.
What TCU did this past season was remarkable. And I've heard it stated by a few during the off season that it's been remarkable and unprecedented. But I give them the, hey, hang on just a second. We're talking about some knowledgeable football people sometimes have said that. We only need to go back a decade. And I have not done the deep dive historically, but I've got a pretty good read on everything post late 70s just in my head. And I know nothing's come close to that 0-8 team in the SEC in 2012 that went 3-9 to go from that point. And then in that conference, so TCU, what they did was fabulous, not to discredit it in any way. That was in the Big 12 where everyone's kind of in that mid-range. But Auburn to lift itself on Gus Malzahn's first season to within seconds of a national championship at the Rose Bowl was phenomenal.
Yeah, I just watched that clip. You say seconds from a national championship, and it's painful to watch it every time. I have a shirt in this closet over here of stuff I pull out to wear for shows, and it's the championship game shirt, the one you bought before the result of the game. And I can't hardly bring myself to look at that thing. Yeah, the turnaround with Gus Malzahn, to me, I think in hindsight, if you really look at things in context, it's not surprising that happened because he was only a year removed from Auburn as the offensive coordinator. Those were his guys there, and his scheme still lived in some essence. They were, the transition that Gene Chizik tried to make and offensively and defensively in that last year of his time with Auburn didn't work. And so obviously there wasn't really a good foundation built with that. So when you look at it in hindsight, it makes sense that it would happen, but it doesn't take away from what they pulled off. As you said, that season was still the worst. I think some Auburn fans now try to say that this last season was the worst. Nah, no, you didn't live through that one, or at least you weren't as into following it during that one. That one was absolutely miserable. But that transition, the way it's still magical, right? The way what we pulled off in 2013, nearly winning the national title, doesn't take away anything from that team and that coaching staff. But again, it's just an example of Auburn finding its way back into relevancy very quickly.
Kyle, you don't want to relive it, but at the same time, you were reliving it even before I brought it up. So I'm gonna take you back there because in that type of game where it's that excruciating, I'm sure Auburn fans have many discussions about that play. There's always 3 or 4 that were just teetering on just being the make or break portion of the football game. So for you, which I know as soon as you start to run them down, you're going to refresh my memory on some turning points in that game.
The turning points. Well, obviously, Auburn came out really hot, if you remember that game, and got up by about at least 2 touchdowns, if I remember
I think it
correctly
was
on the score.
21-3.
I think that, thank you. I knew it was a little bit further than that, but I didn't want to step out there and say inaccurate, but I knew it was at least 2 touchdowns, if not more. And so Auburn, had this hot offense, came on, kind of took Jameis Winston and the Florida State Seminoles by shock. And it looked like Auburn was just going to run away with this thing. And then they fought back, shows you that they had whether you like Jimbo Fisher or not, I'm not particularly fond of him, but I still got to admit they had a pretty good team and coach team that year and a pretty good athlete. But if you want to really find the points in the game where things turned and you ask the question, what if? There's a couple of them at the very end of the game. That kickoff return. If you just do kickoff coverage, even remotely, as well as a top tier college football team can do, and everybody makes mistakes and people make great plays, but him busting that kickoff return loose, that obviously put us in a situation where we had to exchange the lead at the very end of the game. And then just thinking back a little bit here, trying to figure out how many different plays I could mention here. On the last play of the game, if you look, we did some little razzle dazzle play because time was running out and we had to pull some sort of craziness off. Trey Mason gets the ball, I think, on a little flip out to him. And if he cuts right, I believe, instead of cuts left, when he got tackled to end the game, he's gone. There's nobody out there. And he had made a great play earlier in the game where he had just broken tackles and stuff like that to give us the lead back after that kickoff return. If Trey Mason, the running back, breaks right, this is a different story and probably a different way. Gus Malzahn's probably still here, to be honest with you.
I'll have to check that out.
I may be remembering it incorrectly, but I feel like when I watched, I was like, yeah, he cuts right. What Trey Mason can do, Auburn's national title. It has a national title.
I believe that's the only time the SEC has been the underdog in a championship game. I'm almost certain of that. I'd have to go year to year just to verify it, but I'm almost certain.
Feels like
Auburn was like a 10-point underdog in that game, something in that range. I remember coming out the first drive and Nick Marshall had a wide open receiver way downfield and missed him. He threw it in the grass in front of him. And I just, not that that was any kind of turning point. It was like the first drive of the game, but just having that thought, knowing Nick Marshall's game, I thought, man, he's got to be on point tonight. And I'm sure he played better throughout the game. And again, I haven't watched it for years and years and years, but yeah.
You know what's funny about that too? You talk about Nick Marshall. He's one of the more underappreciated athletes, but quarterbacks at Auburn in quite some time. And he was never a conventional quarterback. He had quite an arm on him and he could sling it around. Maybe sometimes lacked a little bit of accuracy, but with that arm strength on that type of build, the type of quarterback he traditionally was pretty incredible. And if you want to talk about just moments too, this is how great Auburn felt about that game. Obviously, our offense got going. Trey Mason's still running well as he had been doing at the end of the season. And we hit this pass, the first touchdown pass, I believe, to a guy named Melvin Ray. Nobody at Auburn hardly knew who he was. Nobody in college football knew who he was. So it felt like that kind of day. If Melvin Ray is going to be scoring a pretty long pass touchdown, we were feeling pretty good going into that. But obviously, we know how it ended.
Well, Kyle, we will move forward from the glory days and hit you up on this one. And of course, we're going to do this every Tuesday at noon Eastern time. So you are welcome to stop by anytime you'd like. But quarterback battles are always at the forefront of spring conversations. And we've had this discussion with you, but just for a different audience here. How do you assess the quarterback battle at Auburn?
Right now, I think you can do the cliche. It's wide open. Coach Freeze has come out and said all positions. There's no depth chart. And every coach says that every year to some degree. Now there's times when you've got a Stetson Bennett at quarterback at Georgia, who's going to be the guy, and no matter what the quote unquote race is. I would say it's still Robbie Ashford's job to lose at this point. TJ Finley's still there. There are speculations and rumors that he's ready to graduate after this spring and will make a move somewhere else. Now, if he comes out and shows the coaches that he can win this job, maybe that changes minds a little bit. So really, it's just speculations right now. It doesn't feel like there's a big quarterback race, but that could change very, very quickly if things start, moving in that direction. I will say, and I don't know if I'm at liberty to say this name out loud. I'm not going to say the name, but I have had someone tell me that there's discussions of a transfer quarterback that was once in the picture earlier for Auburn before spring started, maybe coming back into the picture from we'll call it a non-Power 5 school. I don't think you have to think too much about that. I don't know that for 100% facts. So I don't want to start spreading rumors, but I've been told lately that there may be a transfer quarterback that may come into the mix by the end of this thing. But for now, my advice to Auburn fans, get on board with Robbie Ashford as your quarterback. And if somebody else wins it when they get here, support him too.
Kyle Loomis, E2C Network. And I pointed this statistic out, I believe, with Kyle, but I've done it a number of times because I think it's fascinating, because most college football fans believe the sport to be stagnant in regards to teams' level of play and their status from year to year. But 27 of the 65 Power 5 schools either increased by 3 games or more or decreased in wins by 3 or more from one season to another, 2021 to 22. So just don't expect, or don't just assume that teams are going to stay the same. Auburn may be ready for a bit of a jump here.
I hope so. And that's the history, as we started off our conversation with talking about how quickly Auburn responds after some very rough times. I also don't want Auburn fans to expect that either. I think the precedent is that Gus Malzahn came in and did what he did in a short amount of time. But again, you have to look at the context of that. His guys were there, all the stuff we talked about at the beginning of our conversation. But given the nature of what Auburn's biggest problem was, the offense, the last couple of seasons, and you bring in an offensive guy, and we know there are weapons on this team, it remains a high possibility that type of turnaround, at least offensively, can be there. I'd like to see defensively what we look like first. One of their strong points, maybe not so much the last 2 years, but still was stronger, was the defense. And we've lost a lot of talent like Derek Hall, Colby Wooden, Iku Leota, and plenty others. Now we're also returning a lot of talent there as well. So if the defense can be just a tick better than it was last year, and it really wasn't outstanding, and you get an offense that explodes to heights that it hasn't been the last 2 years, you're right. We could see a humongous jump up in win totals. I'm just very cautious. I know the state of the fragile nature of the Auburn family right now. Just hold on a minute. Let's see. Let's get them out there on the field. Let's see what happens in those first couple games, and then we can make some judgments. So it'll be interesting. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, when I make that statement, Kyle, you're of course on the ground. You're dealing with the real life situation and the personnel and the roster and all that. I'm just from a treetop standpoint looking over college football, thinking there are going to be, that just statistics prove it over and over, those jumps and those falls. Where are they? Where are they?
If you were a betting person, Auburn would be a good one to bet on to make that jump up. I would agree with you there, just because of history, because of capability. That alone, that's a good bet. But I don't want to, like I said, I'm nervous getting people's hopes up.
I completely understand that. Kyle Loomis, E2C Network. Check it out. It's right here on YouTube and easy to find. E2C Network. Kyle Loomis stopping by. Kyle, we appreciate the time, sir.
Always thank you for having me on here in War Eagle.
All right. Good to hear from Kyle. Checking out Auburn football as they prepare for spring practice. Let's hit up our next guest. We got Ty Hudson coming up on the line. Look at this. Ty, what's going on today? Okay.
It's a Pepsi Zero.
Okay.
It's a Pepsi Zero. It's not. I'm not cracking brews at 11:20 a.m. Mark. I got you covered, my guy.
Well, I didn't think so, but hey, you never know what the day calls for. Maybe
That's right.
Had a rough one already.
Nothing like the superior to Coca-Cola Pepsi product. Just saying.
All right. Do we have a sponsorship in line there or something?
I've tried, Mark, and they have denied my advances. It's just a no-go. Whatever. That's fine. Maybe I will switch to Coke. Bring them on as a sponsor.
Okay. Let's see if they can prove themselves. All right. But for right now, it's Pepsi Zero is the cola of choice for Mr. Ty Hudson.
That's
Ty,
right.
It's been a while. Good to see you.
It has, Mark. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. We're giving the SEC some love. Going to devote a couple hours every Tuesday to the SEC. As
Yeah.
I opened up, I said, "Hey, best conference in America, can't be debated." And then I started to list off the years going backwards, and I just stopped and said, "You know what? I could be sitting here for a couple minutes listing back in time as to trying to find at what point the SEC took over and has been the king of college football ever since." But let's go to your little corner of the SEC, Ty. There's been talk this week, of course. The SEC is building a schedule for the future with Oklahoma and Texas. I found it interesting that Brian Kelly said basically kind of bring it on. We want to play the best. So let's line us up against Alabama, Texas A&M, and Ole Miss were the three that the conference. So the conference, everyone, if you haven't heard, has given a select three permanent opponents to each school for them to review and kind of vet out. And that's been the three given to LSU. Nick Saban made a comment last week because, and this seems rather obvious for Alabama, that they would have Tennessee, Auburn, and LSU. But Nick Saban has taken exception to that, believing that it's a little too tough. So nobody's shedding a tear for Nick Saban. So let's go to Arkansas. Who would you like to see those three be?
Well, let's scratch. Mizzou is right now their SEC East opponent.
I know you're not fond of Mizzou.
So let's get rid of that. Let's push Mizzou out. Texas for sure. I mean, a lot of the kids, like the kids on campus today, they know there's a rivalry there, but they don't really get it. And to be honest with you, I'm even disconnected from it. I'll be 40 this year. I'm not, I know it's a big deal anytime. And I love beating the color burnt orange. I love it when Arkansas beats Texas like they did last year in Fayetteville. But it's time to reconnect that rivalry because that was a deep rivalry back in the day. One of the best in college football. So Texas, I'm going to be real. Let's just go ahead and make this a Southwest Conference thing. Let's bring A&M. I don't have a problem with that. Even though they've had Arkansas's number in football. I mean, they really have. There's no other way about it, but I want to stick with that. I kind of like that old school Southwest Conference feel. Why not? And then I guess the last one's a little bit more difficult. Maybe I would go Ole Miss because there have been some pretty good games. I mean, you go back to the 4th and 25. You go back to there's a lot of history between Arkansas and Ole Miss. It does feel, I don't know if I want to call it a true rivalry, but I mean, one program is not much further ahead of the other one. The fans have kind of a mutual respect and at the same time disrespect, if that makes any sense, towards each other. It feels more organic than the fabricated, nonsensical rivalry they have with Mizzou, the Battle Line rivalry. Yeah, that would probably be my three. You could you could probably swap Ole Miss for Mississippi State because there have been some really good games between those two teams as well. Although lately Mississippi State has had the edge over the Razorbacks since going back to the Petrino era or after the Petrino era. But that would probably be my three. I might find a way to put LSU in there, but Hog fans are probably going to go, whoa, wait a minute, hold on. Texas, A&M, and LSU. Come on. I don't know about that. And especially if LSU is going to go off and be in their own little pod. But yeah, I guess that would be my three.
Totally makes sense. Texas, yeah. I'm a guy that started watching college football in the late 70s. Texas, Arkansas, man, takes me back. Southwest Conference days. It was special. It was amazing. Give me that. Absolutely. The SEC would be in kind of a difficult sales pitch to say that suddenly a rivalry that they've been pushing for 10 years as a marquee game that's moved to a neutral site at a premier NFL stadium, the palace of the NFL, is suddenly not worth determining as a permanent opponent now out of three when they've lined up Texas A&M and Arkansas every year is this, again, separate game to be played at a neutral site. So that would be odd if they turn their back on that one. And then, yeah, I guess Ole Miss, I would tend to favor. I don't really have an explanation like you did, because obviously from a geographic standpoint, yes, closer to Arkansas than Mississippi State, but not in any kind of real form. But Ole Miss up there near Memphis,
Mm-hmm. I could see their approach being, well, let's keep them on the west side of the Mississippi.
Yeah.
And let's just keep Mizzou. Let's
Yeah.
keep, and then put them with Texas and Texas A&M. I could also see Oklahoma in that mix with Arkansas as well. I think that, honestly, Mark, I try to tell I think about 70% of my viewers are outside of Northwest Arkansas, or at least 60%. I get so many Little Rock and Delta and Arkadelphia people and Texarkana people, or they're in Texas, right? Some of them, they're diehard. The most diehard Razorback fans that exist are outside of Northwest Arkansas. I'm just stating facts. But the River Valley, which is basically like Fort Smith on up to Fayetteville, Siloam Springs, Springdale, there is a natural hatred for the Oklahoma Sooners in this part of the state. And Oklahoma people do not like Arkansas people. It's not unheard of for Sooner fans and Razorback fans to get into it on Dixon Street in Fayetteville. It's not unheard of for stuff to go down in the River Valley. I've heard of some stuff going on down in Fort Smith. They don't like each other. So I could now, not that the SEC would respect that, right? That's whatever. That's just fans not getting along. But for fans up here, it would. I think that would be a fun rivalry. That'd be a fun game to watch, Arkansas and Oklahoma. It feels organic. You have connections there, right? Between Barry Switzer and his time at the U of A, and of course he would go on to Oklahoma and do special things with the Sooners. So that would probably feel more organic than maybe even. Well, it definitely would feel better than Mizzou, but I gotta stop. I've got a problem, Mark. I hate that school and I hate that rivalry. I'm just gonna say it.
You know that your schedule is going to be easier if you take on Mizzou, as opposed to one of these other selections.
What you mean with Mizzou? It'd be easier.
Yes, with Mizzou.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure fans would love to schedule like Vanderbilt to be in their pod, right? Mizzou. It's just not going to go that way. And I don't know that those are those games that fans are going to really get excited for. They're going to get excited for Oklahoma, Texas A&M, LSU if they stay in the picture, Ole Miss just because of the years of great games, Mississippi State. But yeah, Missouri, no one really gets that excited about Missouri. And what's crazy is Missouri fans, not to keep going in on them. Really, it's me having fun with them, if anything. But their fans view this as a legit rivalry in all sports except baseball, because they're horrible. We all know they're a horrible baseball program. But they've had Arkansas's number in football and basketball. They really have. They've done a pretty good job. And their fans, their staff, you look at Drinkowitz, he called us, what did he say? That school down there? Like, come on, bro. All right, sure. They take it serious. And Arkansas fans, meanwhile, are like, yeah, whatever. But they're getting their asses kicked. I mean, Missouri's beating them in football and basketball. So, they split this year, but, whatever. But, I get it. Taking Mizzou out, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. They probably will keep Mizzou in just because of the region, and it makes the most sense, and probably give them something like Texas and Texas A&M. Or maybe they'll give them OU instead of A&M or something. But it's going to be fascinating to see how this plays out.
Not to get you fired up, Ty, but
Oh.
I've talked to enough LSU media folks that look at the Arkansas series similar to the way you look at the Missouri series to say, we've got other rivals. We got Ole Miss, we got Alabama, we got Texas A&M. Arkansas thinks we're a rival. They treat us like a rival. We don't treat them like that.
No, they do. He's right. Arkansas treats LSU like a rival, and it's not a rivalry. Now, it does have a great boot, and to Arkansas fans, it is a rivalry. I have never met an LSU fan in my life, and I've actually, that's probably the most SEC games I've ever watched in person, whether it be in Little Rock or in Fayetteville. I've never been to Baton Rouge. Always have a good time with their fans, but if I ask them the rivalry question, or if one is in my DMs, I used to get them in my DMs a lot when I would make the corn dog jokes. I'd get into some pretty good conversations. I was actually included in like a group chat with me and a couple of other LSU people and their media people. And I couldn't tell you who they were. It's like an independent podcast, but we had a good back and forth about how their fans treat Arkansas and how we treat LSU. They don't view Arkansas as a rivalry. They just don't. Nobody does. No one in this conference outside of Mizzou. And I know we got someone in chat saying nobody gets excited for Arkansas. BS. Mizzou fans, for whatever reason, really like this rivalry. But I would say they're probably, between them, maybe Ole Miss, are about the only two teams that really look at Arkansas as legit SEC rivalry. And that's not to speak. That's not for me to hate on Arkansas. I think it has a lot to do with they don't have the history going back to the 1940s, 50s, 60s in this conference. They didn't join until the early 90s, and they didn't join on the best of terms. Like, they were not good. Jack Crow and who they had transitioning in, then eventually go to Danny Ford, wasn't good. Their entry to the SEC in football, basketball's a different story, but in football wasn't very good. So it's hard when Arkansas has been mostly average since joining the SEC for anyone to really take them serious as a rivalry.
Didn't take Arkansas long to get pretty decent. They made the 95 SEC championship game. They had the good teams with Houston Nutt there in 98, 99 in that range. And so I'm guessing here, Ty, and again, this is a guy coming in from the outside. I did work in the SEC for 7 years, so I was in the middle of it there, covering it every day, but that was a long time ago. And not during the Mizzou time. This was prior to Mizzou entering the league. But I got to think, Mizzou, despite winning 2 Eastern Division championships when they first showed up, in years 2 and 3, you would think that would have kind of cemented them as being a legit member of the conference, but they still just kind of seem like they're kind of on the outskirts, barely connected to the rest of the league, and nobody really regards them. So they got to hang on to something. They got to hold on to something. And it's unfortunately for you, it's your Hogs.
Yeah. And it's funny, like around here, if you go to Branson, right? Branson, Missouri, if you go to the park, there's Razorback fans everywhere. I mean, they take over Silver Dollar City, Branson, Razorback shirts everywhere. And I always seem to see, and this whatever, it's just me, and take it for what it's worth, but there's always Mizzou fans trying to peck at Razorback fans, like, no one cares, bro. Like, we just, for whatever reason, maybe they should take Mizzou serious. But yeah, they seem so foreign because I've always looked at Mizzou as like, I know they were in the Big 12 for a little while, and I've always looked at them as like a Southern Big 10 team. Like, they might as well be, because of how far north they are. Now, I know you could say the same about Kentucky and so on and so forth, but to people around here in this region, anything north of the border is the North, right? I mean, we consider Kansas City around here to be the North, even though it's, Midwest. It's still the north of Arkansas, and that's just kind of how they view Missouri. Columbia might as well be hundreds of miles away. It's not in proximity to Fayetteville, really. I mean, it's not that far away, but it's not exactly like a real close school from school to school, although I think they're one of the closer schools to Arkansas in the SEC, which will change if you get well, no, I guess it won't, because Norman, Oklahoma is, how far is Norman from here? Well, anyways, it's, fans have just never taken this game seriously in any sport. And they do seem foreign to the SEC. It doesn't feel like they belong. And I'm not speaking from like a looking down on them, just in terms of geographically where they're at on the map. It's a weird thing. But, you could say the same thing about West Virginia being in the Big 12. I know you and I have talked about that before. It's just kind of weird how this is how it's kind of mapped itself out in the league, but it's only going to get weirder from here on out.
And I think to a certain extent, it depends on how old you are. So for me, it's still, even after 10 or 11 years, I sometimes just group Missouri with the Big 12. They're a former Big 12. Geographically, they're right in the middle of it. They're there. I just still have that kind of thought. Of course, I know they're in the SEC, and I'm not confused by it by any stretch. And then when it comes to delineation between North and South, growing up where I did in Ohio, I always knew, okay, Pennsylvania's in the North, but there's the line. West Virginia's in the South. I don't know about Maryland. That's kind of ambiguous. Ohio's in the North, but you cross the river. Kentucky's in the South. Yeah. And then once we move west, I didn't really know, and still don't know but you're telling me Kansas City, that's Kansas City, Missouri, of course. But in the north, and then so Oklahoma's the south.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Cut off?
yeah. I mean, I think for us they are. Yeah. I mean, they're just to the west of us, and I would consider them in Texas, south, southwest, obviously with Texas. But yeah, and again, maybe that kind of speaks to the lexicon of it all, like the fact that Oklahoma. That's why it might feel a little bit more organic, because we do consider them a part of that. They're part of that kind of Southern culture, if you will. You know, it's just different down here, Mark. Listen. You're all Yankees to all of us. I mean, everyone. You could be literally on the very bottom of Missouri, and we're going to call you a Yankee. I won't, but other people around here will. But if you're south and if you're even with us down geographically, then all right, you're cool. You're south.
Okay. Wet Blanket is telling us 245 miles from Norman to Fayetteville.
Okay, so that's roughly
4 hours.
4 hours. Yeah.
It's not bad.
That's not that bad. That's certainly not a bad drive. For some reason I was thinking like 5 to 6, but I mean, you're in Texas at that point.
Ty, I want to respect your time, but I've got a few things to hit you up on concerning the here and now with Arkansas football. Here we go.
Throw it
and
at
of
me.
course, you can catch Ty on Tusk Talk with Ty. When can we find that? What time during the day?
So I've gone to these random times now.
Sound like me. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you get it. The schedule gets a little crazy, and I'm doing things now where I'm doing interviews for Patreon supporters where they're getting first access. If you're a Patreon, you get first access to the interviews. I'm bringing on Otis Kirk tomorrow. That should be at 11 o'clock, assuming that the schedule stays the way it is. Otis Kirk, who works over at Hogville, who's covered Arkansas recruiting longer than I've been alive. So that's always fun having him on. I enjoyed working with him when I was at Hogville. It's kind of random. It's mostly now it's kind of split between Monday, for sure, Fridays, and then I'll throw some shorts out. I noticed you're putting some shorts out lately, Mark.
Got some shorts.
You're doing it right.
We gotta get with the times. I'm hearing from YouTubers that know that that's the place to be. That's the thing to do. So
it is, and I hate it because the algorithm now it's taking away from these from what I view as the best content, which are these hour-long streams, the live streams, like those. The analytics are pulling away from that, and it's showing. I'm seeing it. It's really unfortunate, but yeah, shorts are the way to go these days.
Yeah, I hate to hear that. I can't get my thoughts out in 60 seconds. It just doesn't happen.
Right?
But, hey.
Yeah.
I chose to rip on Notre Dame fans for 60 seconds the other day, so that kind of took hold and people responded to that.
Ouch.
I had some lunatic Notre Dame fans, delusional and just ignorant, not attack me on Twitter, but yeah, they were very aggressive and ignorant. So they had to be put in their place. Now, all Notre Dame fans, others were coming after me, and I said, read the tweet. I said, there are a handful, in quotes, I put handful of delusional, ignorant Notre Dame fans on Twitter today.
You're just going at it with the Catholic. You're just going at it with them fighting Irish. You better be careful.
Well, they like to fight, so
they really do. I mean, that is their mascot after all. He's got his dukes up. He's ready to fight. He's ready to throw down.
As I saw based on your tweet, I think a few hours ago, Matt Landers was he was ready to roll this past weekend and showed up and did his thing.
And of course you get the I told you so's, I told you. I done did told you. Listen, I thought Jaden Hazelwood would be the guy to go to the combine. I mean, he was a 5-star out of high school, Mark. I mean, he went to those events out of high school and was a killer. I mean, he just was great. One of the reasons why he was given that 5th star, and he was great out of high school as a player. And then he goes to Oklahoma, doesn't do much, and he comes to Arkansas, and he's a pretty big-time player. Landers, however, goes a little bit different route. He's a 3-star out of high school, goes to Georgia, transfers to Toledo, comes down to Arkansas. It has a pretty big impact, right? I mean, no doubt about it, had a big impact. Dropped some open balls. He had some issues, and I saw it in practice. I'm going to be real with you. I thought there were a couple times in practice and fall camp. He didn't look bad, but he dropped a couple of balls. But did not think – I knew he was fast. I didn't know he was 4.37 40 fast. Now, I am in the camp of people who say, well, 40 sometimes is just kind of an overrated – it's not overrated, but it's pumped up a little too much. But when you're talking about a wide receiver – dropping that kind of 40, like, those front office people in these NFL organizations are going to look at that and go, okay, 6'4", 200 pounds, and he runs a high 4.3, and he's got a good vert, and he's got good size hands. His splits are nice. Like, yeah, he earned himself a paycheck, Mark. I went from going, he might be lucky to get drafted, to now, man, who knows? He could slide up to the 5th, 6th round. I mean, he maybe higher. I don't know. It's not often 6'4", 200-pound wide receivers who also have some numbers to go along with it out of college. It's not often that you see those guys come along and them drop, really far in the NFL draft. But anything can happen. We know it's all based on team needs. So, but it was pretty impressive.
Matt Landers, of course, originally signed with Georgia, had a pit stop with Toledo, then made his way to Fayetteville, 47 catches, 900 yards. Not a whole lot of guys around college football average over 19 yards per reception. You don't see that number very often, 19.28 scores. So we wish Matt Landers the best, but he's obviously really worked his tail off to get ready for that combine and now for the draft. And I'm sure there's a pro day coming up here in Fayetteville.
It is. I don't know when. I don't know if they've sent out, the SID has sent that out yet. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's typically not long before the draft when that comes out. So yeah. Oh, shout out to A Damn Beast Media. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you can't say we've never done anything for you, Ty. We got you one sub there.
I'll take it. And listen, Hog fans, I know when I come on here, I make them mad, Mark, because I'm not all sunshine and, and flowers and daisies and unicorns. I am and I hate to say this because it's cliche, I am pretty real about the Razorbacks. I'm not one of these guys that live on the outside or live on the inside and think everyone views us the way fans view us. And that's not an accurate portrayal of the Razorbacks and how the SEC community sees Razorback football. It has been down. I don't think there's any doubts about that. And I'm pretty honest on my show. Listen, I'll get excited when they do good, and I'll be critical and a quote unquote realist. There's that cliche. When it's time to be. But yeah, I always appreciate the opportunities of being on here, Mark. I'm glad to see you doing this. So I think this is a good idea, laying down the link and just saying, hey, come on in. I love that idea.
You know what we did last night that was kind of interesting, and I don't know what the feedback's going to be. I edited together 6 hours of programming, and at midnight, I just let it roll as a live stream.
Oh.
People just came in, and I just went to bed, and they could watch the content and interact in the live chat.
Wow. That's a good idea. How long was it?
6 hours.
Whoa. So wait, so the whole thing was it was a 6 hour video.
I edited together a 6 hour clip, and some were 5 minutes long, some were 30 minutes long, just various clips, different teams, threw it all together, let it roll at midnight.
It did pretty well.
I think it's got like 700 views at this point. It just ended at 6 a.m.
Listen, that's doing pretty good with this algorithm the way it is. I find shorts, and I know we're talking shop here, and not everyone's into that, but I'll make it quick. Shorts are weird because I uploaded that short this morning at I don't remember what time. It might have been 9 o'clock. By 9:25, it had 750 views. And I thought, that's pretty good. This is on pace. That ought to be on pace for at least 2,000-3,000 views. That's pretty neat. It's hard to push this. College football is not a big time click thing here on YouTube unless it's highlight content. And so I went to Walmart, did some shopping, picked up some more, Superior Cola. And
gotta make sure you're stocked up.
Oh, I am. I've got several cases. I'm good to go. Wife's not happy about it, but so by the time I got home, several hours had passed, and I looked, it was at 700. It was at the same view count. And I thought, what the hell? Like, what's going on? So I'm sure now it's updated, but they treat shorts the way they push it in the algorithm is very strange. It's like they push it, it hits a certain point, and then they pull it back. And you're like, what?
And just what we do from a day-to-day basis is obviously not good for a shelf life. We deal in the moment. The stories die out very quickly. Obviously, once we get into the season, that's awesome. People are engaged, but you're previewing a game that's 2 and 3 days away, and then the stuff's outdated. It's not like we've got gardening channels that can live forever.
Yeah.
And people are going to watch them 10 years from now.
That's why the most popular college videos are highlights. Like RJ Young, who's for a time was probably the biggest name in what we do. And now you have Josh Pate at 247. And I'm not saying this to brag, but there was a time when I was kind of going toe to toe with him on certain videos that were uploaded. And then, of course, you look back several weeks later and the views haven't jumped his jump, and they do take over. You know, they start to climb while yours his go up. You know, far more popular guy. He's really good at what he does. I like RJ Young a lot.
Absolutely.
But then, like, you're right. You get buried in the algorithm because what you're talking about is in the moment. It's not something you're going to go back and watch like a highlight clip. That's the most popular content. It's like, oh, let's go watch, I don't know, Matt Jones, his 50-yard run against whoever, you know, that's the popular side of those clips. Like, and I uploaded a Matt Jones short, and it did really well. I think it over 1,000 views. But those videos do better, and there's a reason. They're shorter, they're to the point, they're bing bang boom. It's someone mentioned it's a TikTok society. That's 100%. We live in a TikTok short attention span world, and I'm just as guilty. Listen, when I watch my political content or whatever, I like videos that aren't, you know, hour and a half long. I like 15 minutes, maybe, you know, just enough to get the information. So I get it. I'm not blaming anybody. It's just the world that we live in.
Well, my daughter's a marketing and PR major, and she's been working now for 1.5 years. So she's put her skills to use, and she's in the field. And she tells me, Dad, she said, it's kind of interesting and doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because she said, yeah, those really quick short form videos, shorts, reels, Facebook, whatever they call it, stories, all those is where it's at. However, these mammoth, like 2-hour Joe Rogan style podcasts, audio podcasts, are always they're in as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like both ends of the spectrum. I don't know. People
Rogan
hop on a subway and just listen to that for 45 minutes.
Politics has dominated that space, and Rogan is a big part of that. And I'm not going to hide it. I love Joe Rogan. I watch Rogan, Russell Brand, Jimmy Dore. I'll watch some conservatives. I'll watch, you know, some liberal, and I'll try to balance out my views. And I don't mind those being long if it's good content, like if it's what I'm there to listen to. But that content is killing it. Rogan is killing it because he brings on different guests from all different aspects. It's not kind of the same thing over and over. And it's always like the most hot button topic, right? Yeah. It's the, you know, whatever. I'm not going to get into the political stuff, but, you know, and they cover that. College football, college athletics just isn't, I don't know, just not at that level yet. Maybe it will be. Who knows? You know, what's the other? There's YouTube, and then there's one more. Is it Rumble?
There's Rumble. Yep.
Are you over there? Are you on Rumble?
I'm not there. People have suggested I get there.
Me too.
There's only so many things I can do in a day.
Yeah, that's true.
Got 16 YouTube channels. Well, I've got 25, but we're basically running 16.
You're crushing it, Mark. You're doing a good job, man.
Well, I appreciate it. I was just going to say, Ty, you know, when we talk about not making the kind of headway others do, we got to be kind to ourselves to a certain extent, because I'm constantly kicking myself too and thinking, hey, I need to be better, do better. Yeah. Why is this not exploding? But hey, we're one guy, and we're just going the organic route, you know. 247 Sports. Anytime I click on, and I'm on 247 Sports a lot because I'm looking up recruiting rankings.
Oh, yeah.
100% profiles. And what happens every time you click on a 247 page? You got a video running.
Yeah.
So That
Yeah.
helps the marketing aspect.
It's
of it,
embedded.
too.
Yeah, it's embedded at the top. And yeah, that is a nice advantage that they have. And our 247 guy down here is Trey Biddy. Trey, listen, he makes his content, it's like right to the point, and he does a really good job. Like I've met Trey in person handful of times when I went to, when I was able to go to practice last year. And you're around the media, right? I don't consider myself media, but I'm more of just a commentator. Those guys are media. And Trey was one of the nicer ones of the group. And he does a good job for 247 down here. I mean, he's really made a name for himself when it comes to recruiting. Of course, I'm a little more biased towards guys like Otis Kirk and Dudley Dawson because I worked alongside them, and they're really good at what they do too. We're fortunate. Hog fans sometimes don't think that way. You get a lot of the cynical people on Twitter, but they really are like the people that cover the Razorbacks down here. I don't know that any of them actually do a bad job. Like I think they all do a really good job. I've got a lot of respect for those guys, especially seeing how hard their job can be at times. I mean, got a lot of respect for them. I'm not what they do. I'm not a writer. I'm just a fat guy with a microphone, an overpriced microphone, and a crappy webcam. That's all I am. I just flap my gums. But I am like you too. I'm really hard on myself. That's why there's not anything anyone in my chat can ever say that really gets under my skin, because you are not saying anything that I haven't already said to myself. And maybe not even, you don't even scratch the surface sometimes. Not that I get a lot of those comments. In fact, they're pretty rare, but yeah, we got to learn to not be so hard on ourselves. But
all right, Ty. Based on those conversations that you've had with those various writers, and based on your own perspective on this football team, they're going to spring practice here. And
yeah,
what do they need to work on? What are the priorities?
Oh my gosh. They're going to be without Drew Sanders. And I made a comment a couple of weeks ago. Some people didn't really like, but I said, you don't have another Drew Sanders on defense. And they don't, Mark. Drew Sanders was a big-time 5-star, went to Alabama. He was good enough to get some time there. And then, thank God, thanks to Michael Schur and Barry Odom, you pull him here. And he was outstanding. I mean, he graded out high as a guy that could cover. And obviously he could pass rush when they lined him up off the ball. When they lined him up out in the flats, shooting off the line of scrimmage, he could chase down quarterbacks. I was a little shocked that the NFL Combine actually has him at 6'4". Standing next to him, I would have thought 6'6". Of course, he's got cleats and a helmet on, but very long torso, looked like he had long arms, really good reach, something that's so important for these edge rush guys. They don't have another Drew Sanders on this defense. They do, however, have a potential who I think could be, by the time he leaves Arkansas, an All-American caliber linebacker in Christopher Paul, who is a freshman All-American. Now, he's smaller. He's not going to, I mean, who knows, but he's not the kind of guy you're going to expect to line up off the edge and rush the quarterback. He's going to play that. He's going to be more on the ball. He's not Drew Sanders, but he is a terrific linebacker. 6'3", I forgot his weight, 235 maybe. Really active kid, smart, good head on his shoulders on the field, just a terrific player. I mean, he stood out in camp. He stood out in practice. Really good player. Did not shock me when he made freshman All-American. They've also got Jordan Crook. They've got Manny Powell. They've got some names at linebacker, but that is going to be a spot to keep an eye on. I mean, listen, you asked me, I'm going to tell you they're all spots to look at, to keep an eye on. But I would say areas of concern, I would probably say tight end on offense. Trey Knox transferred to South Carolina, and that was I think that was a pretty significant loss. When you look, they're going to have to lean on probably either Nathan Bax, or they're going to have to rely on a freshman or a redshirt freshman, Ty Washington. So there's a lot of questions at tight end for me. But wide receiver, I love what they did in terms of recruiting there, Mark. I mean, they went out and they got this Tyrone Broden kid out of Bowling Green who's 6'7", 6'6", 210. Isaac Tesla. I think it's actually pronounced Tesla, but I don't know. Tesla's just sounds cooler. Tesla was, I mean, if you watch his videos on YouTube, I posted something a little while back on Twitter. That dude, he looks like he has a catch radius very similar to Treylon Burks. And ironically, he's similar in size. Now, I'm not comparing him to Treylon Burks, so please pump your brakes before you start coming at me with, how dare you compare him to Burks? But he very similar measurables in terms of, he's rumored to be a low 4.5 guy. Well, that's what Burks ran at the NFL Combine. Rumored to have a 40-inch vertical. He's got a video where he's just making these one-handed grabs. In another video, he's beating DBs who take an angle on him, and it looks like they have a pretty good angle, and he's still doing a pretty good job of beating them. Now, again, I don't know how legit that 4.5 40 is, because coming from a small school, that's a hand time 40. So he might be slower than that. I don't know, but he's pretty athletic. He's definitely got a great leap. If you watch him, good. He looks like, from highlight videos, he looks like he's got pretty good hands. Tesla's a guy that a lot of people are excited about. Tyrone Broden, again, that tall wide receiver, lengthy. They also pulled Andrew Armstrong, another wide receiver, out of Texas A&M. It's not A&M. It's like, I forgot. It's some small school out of Texas. But Andrew Armstrong, 6'3", 180 pounds. But I'm still concerned there because you don't have there's no proven depth there, right? You don't have someone that you look at and you're just like, oh my God, this guy, potential first team all conference, second team all conference. They don't have that we know of yet. So I've got questions in certain areas on the offense.
Broden, 7 touchdown receptions, 32 catches there at Bowling Green last season, 74 catches in his career.
Yeah. Someone asked me, I'd love to know what Ty thinks of the coordinator situation for the Hogs.
I don't know if they're alluding to anything in particular that's happened or just your assessment of both sides of the ball.
So we know they Barry Odom went to UNLV. He's a head coach over there. And then they lost Kendall Briles in a very bizarre situation. I still don't know what to make of that. It was so strange. I guess Sam Pittman didn't like that he kept his name out there, I guess, to be for someone like TCU to come and, offer him. Or I don't understand that really what really happened in that situation. Very bizarre. I think TCU got themselves a pretty good offensive coordinator. Dan Enos, and I guess I haven't talked to you since they hired Dan Enos. I'm just now realizing that. We know he was here in 2015, put up incredible numbers. I mean, Brandon Allen, oh my God. I really think Brandon Allen could look back on his career and go, without Dan Enos, I'm not sure I'm still in the NFL. Now, him as a quarterback developer, that's what Dan Enos does. He develops quarterbacks. That's what he does. He was at Maryland the last couple of years, somewhat balanced attack. He had Tua Tagovailoa's little brother as a quarterback at Maryland. He's not an offensive coordinator that's on an upwards trajectory. So a lot of Hog fans not super thrilled that he's back. I think it's an interesting fit because KJ, who's a proven quarterback in this league, we know what he is. You know what you're getting out of a KJ Jefferson. The backfield, Mark, is just loaded. I think this is one of the top 2, top 3 backfields in the SEC, and that's saying a lot. The offensive line situation, we'll see where they're at. They're going to be without Dalton Wagner, without Ricky Stromberg. Those are 2 interesting losses. Those are 2 guys that could get drafted. Stromberg certainly will, I believe, get drafted. We'll see about Wagner. He's kind of got his work cut out for him there. Tight end, wide receiver, like I just mentioned. I see that as a year one. To me, I'm expecting pretty good numbers. Again, you have a leader in KJ, a guy that knows this league now. He's been a starter for 2 years. His redshirt freshman year, he started on the road against Mizzou and put up great numbers, was fantastic against a pretty salty defense at the time. Comes back the next year and puts on a show, and then this last year, he was obviously really good. Dan Enos, it feels like he's walking into a pretty good situation when you talk about the backfield and the quarterbacks. And I think the offensive line should be better, or at least close to being where they were at last year. And they kind of fell apart there towards the end of the season. I like the hire year one. After that, Mark, I do not know what to expect. I really don't. I really I don't know if this is a good long-term thing or not. If he's here for 4 years, let's say 3 years, right? Kind of the average lifespan of a coordinator at a place like Arkansas. I don't know if it'll be a good ending to his story or not at Arkansas. I don't know if he'll leave it better than the way he found it, because Kendall Briles did a pretty good job here. I had issues with him. I certainly did. His red zone numbers were not good. Scoring offense, really, up until the bowl game, was not good. Now, the bowl game, you looked really good because you played a typical Big 12 defense. You should rack up touchdowns and offense against a Big 12 defense. And they did that. So his numbers were a little bit inflated. I think overall Kendall was at least a pretty good offense coordinator, maybe even peaking on a really good coordinator for Arkansas. I did have issues with him in the red zone and his scoring. They were very up and down, not real consistent there. Dan Enos is, you want to say he's got big shoes to fill. Year one, he could fill them. After that, I don't know. Now, for the defense, Travis Williams, he's an up-and-comer. We know he has history with Auburn. He was down at UCF for a couple of years, known to be a really good recruiter. He's known to be a good players coach. I love that they brought Marcus Woodson on to be a co-defense coordinator who's going to help with the secondary. They've also brought on Darren Wilson, who's going to help out with the secondary. He has history. I couldn't tell you. I know he's with Southern Miss for a little while. They're really trying to tackle the issues in the secondary this year, Mark, because they were so bad in pass defense last year. It was abysmal how bad they were. It was really tough. And they're trying to address that. And I really think Sam has done a good job of at least trying to address it. It may not work out. We don't know. But Marcus Woodson apparently has had quite a bit to do with Florida State's secondary and their coverage plan last year. I sound like I'm selling you cell phone coverage. The Florida State cell coverage was fantastic last year on the field. And they believe that Marcus, I mean, from what I've read and listening to Florida State fans and watching them on Twitter, they feel like Marcus Woodson had a lot to do with that. So he's going to come over. He's going to help with that at Arkansas. You've got Quincy McAdoo back, right? You've got some pieces back. They've got Hudson Clark back at middle safety. Dwight McLaughlin, who's considered, according to Pro Football Focus, as one of the top corners coming back in the SEC. They should be better in a lot of areas. Now, I don't know if they're going to be better at getting after the quarterback because, like I said, you're without Drew Sanders. You're not going to have that elite edge rush guy. You've got Landon, the young Jackson. Is that his name? Am I farting on his name? The defensive end from LSU. It's been a while since I've talked about him. Huge guy. They've got him back. He'll be a redshirt. What is he, a sophomore? But the defense is going to look different, and the offense is going to look different. You're going to see more pistol formation, right? You're going to see Enos has implemented RPO. I was watching his Maryland film. He has implemented RPO into his offense. He has adapted his offense. I think something he's really good at doing is calling the kind of offense that the offense is capable of running. Whatever kind of personnel he has, that's what he's going to try and utilize. He's not going to just straight up stick with one particular brand. Like, he's not like an air raid guy, no matter where he goes. He's going to run with what he can work with. But you will see a lot of pistol, right? They're going to, like I said, they're going to run RPO, probably going to be a run-heavy team again this year. And why not? You're loaded to do that. But overall, I have really good opinions on these hires. I mean, again, the tight end coach, Morgan Turner, this guy was at Stanford and churned out. It was an NFL. They're just an NFL product at tight end. That was a great hire for Arkansas. We'll see if these guys can all adapt what they did really well and bring it together and bake a really delicious pie in Fayetteville, because they're going to need to. Fans aren't super thrilled about the Enos hire overall. They're not blown away by the Travis Williams hire. And I don't blame them. These aren't big names, but Arkansas football's not really been in a position to hire those kind of names in a while. Not that they never have been, because they certainly have. But lately, they're still trying to build up that reputation. So we'll see what happens. But it's going to be a very interesting spring camp. It's going to be. I'm hoping I get some access to it with a press pass. I'm hoping I get opportunities to go see it in person. And can't wait. If I do, can't wait to talk about it. That's for sure.
Can't wait to hear about it. One more go for the Hogs in the traditional SEC Western Division here in 2023 before we move on to a new format. OU Texas on board. Who knows what it's going to look like? Pods, divisions, whatever it is. probably some kind of 3-6-6 model in regards to the schedule, as we have discussed. You know what we've done in past off seasons, Ty, that I gotta get you back in here for, not necessarily for this format, but we've run through the positions. So would love to do that with you.
Yeah. Right now?
No, we can do that another time.
Okay.
We'll record that.
I was like, I can do it, but we're gonna go for another. This will be a really long interview. This will be the longest interview I've ever
We'll change
done.
this to Arkansas Live.
Yeah,
Hogs Live.
There you go.
But you get that at Tusk Talk with Ty.
That's right.
So head on over there. The link has been in the live chat. It might be buried at this point, but the link is in the live chat. So, but I'm sure you can find it just by putting Tusk Talk in the search bar on YouTube. So just find it right there. Ty, it's always a good time. Always appreciate you coming by and laying down the knowledge for us.
I appreciate you having me. Hopefully, I didn't make too many people mad today, but I always enjoy coming on, Mark. I always enjoy chatting with you. It's always good stuff.
Thanks, Ty. You have a great day.
Thank you. Go
All right. See ya. Ty Hudson. Haven't seen Ty for a little while, but joins us on a regular basis to break down Arkansas football. And same thing with Kyle Loomis, who just stopped by to talk Auburn. We got together with Kyle the last few weeks. We broke down the Auburn offense and defense position by position. You can catch those videos over on the SEC channel. We will do the same with Ty. And also, we've done the same with Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi State, again, Auburn, Texas A&M, and maybe I'm missing someone, but we've broken down those teams, Kentucky, position by position, over on the SEC channel. So please check out those videos. I'm going to drop the link back here in the chat. So please give me a call, talk SEC football here at the Voice of College Football. Let me get my name on the banner. If you're dropping by for the first time, have yet to catch our channel covering college football, my name's Mark. We are the Voice of College Football here. Best discussion, debate, and analysis. That's the aim, that's the goal, and that's the mission. We've got a video coming out later today, I believe at 5 o'clock Eastern time, maybe 5:30 Eastern. We'll check on that. We'll make it 5 Eastern video release. It premieres on our alignment of what could be the new Big Ten, with all of the rumored additions to the Big Ten by way of the West Coast. So check that video out. I had somebody send me an email today, a viewer who I was not aware of. So that was a new name to me. It wasn't like a regular viewer that I'm aware of, at least. And he had checked out one of the recent realignment videos and said, Mark, I've got a lot of things to pass on to you, a lot of information, a lot of things that will make you better understand. And then he proceeded to list and name a lot of information that we talk about on here all the time. Just because I didn't cover it in that one particular video, I let him know, hey, thanks for contacting me. I appreciate you taking the time. Thank you so much for all that you do and for laying out this information. But keep in mind that we have literally hundreds and hundreds of hours covering realignment facts and information, but also the rumors and addressing those, and also my suggestions and recommendations for realignment. So understand, we've covered everything you've talked about here, because he said, you're just looking at the football. You don't look at the academics. You don't look at the TV markets and all that. And I said, no, you haven't been watching. So I understand you can't watch everything, but understand we've certainly covered all of that. Let's talk some Tennessee football. Let's do that. And best way to do that is you bring in Charlie Burris, A to Z Sports, on the Big Orange podcast. Charlie's getting himself situated. That's good. That's all right. Take your time, Charlie. We're good. We'll keep talking.
Can you hear me now?
Hey, we got you.
There we go.
There it is.
My mic plugged in. That's always
Charlie,
good
thanks
to
for
do.
being here.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Mark. Always good to be here.
What's going on there in Tennessee? Is March Madness taking hold of Knoxville? Where did the Vols stand? Doesn't look like it.
I'm not gonna lie to you. Tennessee fans are a little disillusioned with the basketball team at the moment. Having the regular season be a little mediocre, and then having your starting point guard go down with a season-ending injury has people a little just kind of, we'll see what happens. I don't know. That's a lot of that. But it's still like everybody gets pretty hyped about the SEC tournament. I think people need to see Tennessee at least make the semifinal though before they really get on board. Yeah, that's how I would put it.
Where's the SEC tournament this year?
Nashville. So it'll theoretically it should be a borderline home game for Tennessee, but I don't know how hyped fans are to make that trip. I mean, a lot of them live there, but I don't know how many will go out and buy tickets, especially with Alabama fans. I think they're going to probably take the place over along with Kentucky fans this year, but we'll see. I mean, it would be, if Tennessee wins, it would be probably Ole Miss, Missouri, Alabama. That would be the line of who they play. So we'll get the chance to see who buys the most tickets if they can make it to that Alabama game.
Well, unlike a lot of recent years, going back almost 15 years, when the basketball team's not doing its job in March and April and providing some kind of interest there, then even the most ardent Vols football fans would look at the football team and be like, yeah, I'm excited for spring practice, but I'm not that excited because look at what's happened every year, 5, 6, 7 win seasons. But here we are. At least there's football to rely on.
Yeah.
Spring football.
What a relief to be able to say that. Baseball, too, I will say. Tennessee baseball being really good in recent years has been a huge thing in terms of somebody that covers Tennessee. Oh, Tony Vitello has saved us these last couple off seasons. But, yeah, I mean, spring football coming up, especially since you have the change of Joe Milton at quarterback, Nico Iamaleava coming in, a bunch of actually exciting recruits. But I think the main one that everybody's going to know about is Nico at quarterback. But no, I'm really excited about it, and it's so nice to finally say that again. I mean, I don't know the last time, probably 2016 was the last time where I was really hyped for spring ball, and it's good to be back. And I think with the exciting set of young dudes that are coming in with Tennessee, it's going to be this way at least for a few years, hopefully.
Do you think Josh Heupel has the approach that he's just going to say, hey, quarterback battle, go right ahead. I'm just going to watch this play out. Or it's a Joe Milton job that needs to be taken away from him?
We were actually talking about this on my own podcast yesterday. It seems to be a perception nationally that this is somehow Nico Iamaleava's job to lose. And I mean, I guess if you don't pay close attention to Tennessee, I could understand where that comes from, but you get it from national guys. I mean, Dennis Dodd wrote this garbage in the last couple of weeks where he was like, there are already whispers that Nico isn't worth the $8 million that his NIL deal will be supposedly paying him. And I was like, how can you even say literally anything like that? This kid has only participated in bowl practices, and that was really only to a limited extent. And that's it. I mean, are you in his dorm room talking to, who are your sources on that? And how would you even go about quantifying that? Because if you assume he's eventually going to be the starter, maybe not this year, but the next year, or even this year, if he has a 9-win season, that $8 million is coming back to you. By far, Tennessee makes so much money from basketball or from football and sports in general. I mean, Tennessee is a money printing machine over there. It was so stupid. But there does seem to be this perception of oh, Nico's the guy, and Joe Milton, he's got to win that job. I don't think that's the case. Just from my personal opinion, from seeing what I've seen, and then from the media guys that are at Tennessee most days, I haven't heard anybody have that feeling. It's really been like Joe is sort of taking Nico in and trying to teach him, trying to be a mentor. And I think that's amazing. That's best case scenario to me, is have a good year with Joe Milton this year, and then Nico's, next guy up.
Yeah, for any writer or any media person to take that on as a narrative, boy, you got to be careful there. And I think you got to be more responsible than that in regards to, you got to have something of substance to really rely on to start spreading that kind of and pushing that kind of narrative.
There's a lot to unpack as far as that sort of stuff goes.
Yeah.
Putting Tennessee in the title at this point for any national anybody, that's free views. It's free money if you're Dennis Dodd. I mean, or somebody like that. Like Tennessee fans, I mean, I guess from personal experience right here, just in the last hour, I posted a thing on A to Z Sports about this interview that Nick Saban did, where he was complaining about fast-paced offenses yet again. That's one of his favorite things to complain about. And I just wrote a quick thing about it, and the fervor of Tennessee fans to grab onto something and to either, make fun of Nick Saban or make fun of a national writer that says something stupid or something like that. I mean, I don't know if there's a fan base that's better in all of college football, because they're so passionate about everything. If any affront to Tennessee, it doesn't even have to be something that's directed exactly towards Tennessee. Like Florida baseball had a guy this last week that, as he was rounding the bases while playing Miami, this was a heated rivalry, while he was rounding the bases, he flipped off the outfield. And if you've watched college baseball at all last year, Tennessee was number one for almost the entire season. And then there was a famous moment, infamous moment, I guess, with one of Tennessee's best players. He had a great hit that got Tennessee the lead back in a huge game. And as he was rounding the bases, he flipped off the outfield. Now, one of those created tons and tons of outrage from the national media. And I can tell you, it wasn't the one that involved the Florida guy. And so, like, it was what national media didn't say that got Tennessee fans outraged. So it's really, you don't even have to mention us, but we'll come for you no matter what. I don't know. It's become a funny thing ever since 2017, when the coup happened and the riot down on campus to overthrow the hiring of Schiano and all that stuff. I mean, it just has been, you say anything about Tennessee and we'll come for you. And it, hey, that's, I guess, if you're willing to take the beating, like some of those guys are, some of those writers are, I mean, it's a bunch of free clicks for you, I guess.
So, Charlie, let's stay on Nick Saban, because what's being formed right now, there's a lot of interest in, and that's the SEC schedule format going forward once Oklahoma and Texas join in 2024. And of course, this is important stuff because programs want to protect whatever their interests are, whether that's rivalries, protecting rivalries, whether that's creating the softest schedule they can possibly get and maneuvering for that, whatever their agenda is, this is going to take hold, and it's going to be what that particular program is going to have to face year in, year out for the foreseeable future, for decades probably. So it's funny that Brian Kelly comes out while the conference is seriously considering going to 9 games. And that makes sense. You bring on 2 other teams, you get 16, you only have 8 games. You're not playing 8 other teams or 7 other teams in the conference. It becomes difficult to really justify a champion. So most likely they go to 9 games. Brian Kelly makes the statement, and he was upfront to say, okay, the conference designated for us. And now see what the deal is. From what I understand, the conference has sent each school, here are our suggested 3 for you. Now we want you guys to vet it out, review it, and then, get back to us. The athletic directors are having a meeting sometime in April or May. And then they expect by the time the conference coaches and everyone convenes in Destin late May, that they'll be able to pull it together and everyone will have a consensus on what the schedule format will look like in those permanent opponents. So Brian Kelly said they gave us Bama, Texas A&M, and Ole Miss, and I'm good with it. Said, I came here to play the best. It's fine with me. We're good with that. Nick Saban, they get, what's funny is his statement here, and it's in the ESPN article from a few days ago. I've always been an advocate for playing more conference games, but if you play more games, I think you have to get the 3 fixed opponents right. They're going to give us Tennessee, Auburn, LSU. I don't know how they came up with that decision. Well, you're Alabama, so you play Tennessee. This is a nationally known rivalry, mid-October, the whole deal. That's Auburn. That's the Iron Bowl. Like two of them, obviously. And then LSU and Alabama over the last couple of decades has been a premier ratings getter and attraction in college football. So Saban makes the comment, I don't know where they came up with these teams.
Well, that's absolutely absurd. Of course, that's where they came up with them. It's your biggest rivals. I mean, yeah, because even with that LSU one, yeah, it's a little bit of the odd man out there, but that rivalry in the last 15 years has been absolutely incredible to the point where even in Brian Kelly's first year, they beat Alabama. Like, it's that competitive.
Very few teams have that obvious of three.
Yes, exactly. That's so ridiculous because Tennessee, there's been a lot of talk. Because the one that Ross Dellinger put out, I think around that whole conversation, Ross Dellinger of Sports Illustrated, his three for Tennessee were Alabama, Vandy, and South Carolina, which would make sense. I think a lot of Tennessee fans were probably thinking it'd be Kentucky. It is the closest school to us. It's actually, I think, by mileage closer than Vandy even. Might be wrong about that, but it's honestly, in terms of sports overall, a bigger rivalry than Vandy in general, except they're just in the same state as us. And the thing just with that is like, that's, I'm sure Alabama fans would love to see us get Alabama, Georgia, and I don't know, Texas A&M every year or something like that, but that's not going to happen. That makes no sense geologically, makes no sense geographically. And I guess Tennessee has gotten lucky just because the SEC East has been down in recent years, and those are the teams that naturally fall into those slots. I mean, you're pulling up a Georgia fan here that's in the comments. I mean, does anyone benefit more from a fluffy schedule in the SEC than Georgia at the moment? Should they not get saddled with some, like, their schedule next year is so easy. It's honestly unbelievable. I mean, the toughest game on their entire schedule is Tennessee. And so, like, I don't know. It's tough. I want to say, can we stack it where those teams that are at the top of the conference right now get the hardest set anyway? But at the same time, you can't really do that because of the ebb and flow of college football. Alabama's Nick Saban's eventually gonna retire. Obviously, Tennessee can be up and down and all over the place. Nick Saban's complaining about Tennessee right now because he lost to them this year. But if Josh Heupel leaves for Oklahoma at some point or something like that, who knows where Tennessee will be at in 5 years. So I personally, obviously, I love that draw because I don't think Shane Beamer long-term will be great at South Carolina, and Vandy, of course, is probably always going to stink. So I'm happy with that as far as Tennessee is concerned. But Nick Saban, yeah, could there be really more obvious, a more obvious choice for the three teams that you're gonna play than Alabama's? That's pretty funny. But I mean, classic Saban. He's just a complainer, isn't he?
So the Vols head to spring practice, and I'm going to attack this assignment and try to assign the three for each team in the SEC as I have the other conferences. So, folks, you can look out for that video. But going back to the Vols, spring practice getting started, what are your thoughts about areas of need, concern that need to be addressed? What are the priorities in terms of what needs to be worked on?
I would start with offensive line because I think Tennessee fans are seeing with Darnell Wright, he was a right tackle. People are seeing with his performance in the combine that he was a special player. He's going to be a first-round pick almost certainly in this NFL draft. And that's not going to be easy to replace. So I would go there first because obviously Tennessee is just, everything is centered around that offense. That's how Josh Heupel runs things. Start with that offensive line. Jerome Carvin too, right guard. He has to be replaced. So there's a lot as far as that goes where I'll be looking to see what they're thinking on the offensive line. Who knows exactly what you'll be able to see in spring practice. It's usually not much, but there's that. But for the most part, it all falls on the defense. You have transfers at linebacker, cornerback, some defensive line guys that are coming in, and you have to replace Byron Young, another guy who had a nice showing at the combine and is leaving this year. You have to replace your edge rushers. And so there's going to be a lot of young guys working out in spring ball that I like, supposedly, according to their recruiting rankings, should be good guys that may be able to immediately contribute, but we'll have to see. And so, yeah, the positions you need, your edge rushers, I honestly just choose one on the defensive side of the ball. There's almost everywhere on the defensive side. And if even on the defensive side of the ball, if you have starters set at certain places, like I think the starters are set at linebacker, they still have questions at depth. So, yeah, you can even know the starters at some of those positions, but I'm not sure who's playing behind some of those guys. It's just going to be, young guys are going to have to get it figured out.
And so our guy David, let's be a little bit kind. No, that's not it right there. So David, I understand, Texas basically has made a living for the last 12 or 13 years of saying we're back after a decent win, but Tennessee had a full season. They at least put together a full season, top 6 or 7 in the country, and probably could have been ranked higher than that.
I would answer that by saying, first of all, Texas plays in a way easier league than Tennessee does, so we can start there. Tennessee beat LSU, Alabama, Clemson, all in the same year, and was a lost their mind loss to South Carolina away from the college football playoff. Texas is back year where, the infamous, they beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl.
Yes.
I think. And then after the game, we're back, or whoever that quarterback was. I don't remember.
Sam Ellinger.
Right. Yeah. It really was like sort of a one game thing. And then obviously it all went downhill from there. I mean, I would welcome you to tell me exactly why you think Tennessee will go downhill from here, like Texas does, because I don't see it. They had a top 10 recruiting class. They had a bunch of transfers coming in. They have probably the best quarterback who wasn't a starter last year coming in. So if that makes sense, he wasn't Tennessee starter last year, so he's not technically a returning starter, but the best new quarterback in the SEC that this kid just went out and laid the wood to Clemson. I don't know what else people need to see as far as that goes. So, I mean, I'm open to the discussion, but what do you think that they're going to revert back to this next year to Missouri, Kentucky level? I don't really know what people think as far as that goes. Am I wrong? You're kind of a third party because I think you're a little bit more of a Big Ten guy, right, Mark? So maybe you have some thoughts there. I don't know.
Well, I often shun that statement when it's thrown at me from time to time, Big Ten guy, because we cover all of college football. So I try to stay in the neutral lane and so forth. But, pretty much the way I served it up to you is how I see it, that I don't think Tennessee's established itself as this elite juggernaut. I would like to see it for 2 or 3 years. That's generally how I evaluate a program. But that particular team last year was certainly one of the very best in college football. And I don't think there's any question better than a couple teams that were ranked ahead of it at season's end based on, again, who Tennessee defeated, the explosiveness of the offense, which was arguably the best in college football. So, yeah, I'm not going to be sold by one season, but I also got indication the season before that Tennessee was on its way and much better than what its record was at the conclusion of the season at 7-6. So, yes, there is more to prove. There needs to be sustained success, and that has yet to be proven. But all Josh Heupel's had is 2 seasons, but so far so good. And again, it was a full, complete season versus what we saw out of Texas as, we won one game, we're back.
I want to say this is still a true stat. I know this was true in the last maybe five years ago, but I think every current head coach who's still active in college football and won a national championship won at least 9 regular season games in their second year as coach. I think that is still the case. Kirby did, Saban did, Jimbo did. I'm not sure who else it would be. Did Orgeron, although he's not an active head coach anymore.
Run. Yeah, he's obviously not an active.
Yeah.
You just have Mac Brown and
Mac Brown was part of that group before.
Dabo,
So, yeah.
Mac Brown. That's the you name Mac Brown,
But
it's a short list.
But you just look historically at the trends, like that one, and to just dismiss what Tennessee did last year, like this Georgia fan in the comments said something like, "This is Kentucky in 2021." Kentucky won 10 games in 2021, still lost to Tennessee, by the way. But I just don't agree with that at all. Like, Mark Stoops at that point was in his 7th year as head coach there. You've had all of that time. Heupel wins 11 games in year 2, beats a bunch of teams that have superior talent to him by scheming up and out coaching guys and, beating them with a really innovative, smart offense. He's the absolute bleeding edge of offense in college football. Like, this is, again, I am open to whatever people want to say in response to that, but I don't personally see where people aren't at least giving up. Like, it looks like Tennessee's on the right trajectory. Now, if they lost like absolutely everybody from this team and it was clear, kind of LSU after Joe Burrow, like they lost everybody and you kind of looked around and you went, I don't know if they can do that again. That was kind of a one-man show. This wasn't a one-man show last year. Tennessee's defense should be better next year. Tennessee's offense should be probably take some step back without Hendon Hooker, but not huge. You're still going to have one of the best receivers in the SEC, and just solid at all the other positions. All the running backs are coming back. I see a pretty decent amount of sustained success. Will it be 11 wins again? I don't know, but I think 9-10 is probably going to be the most realistic thing. And is that a drop? Is that a crazy drop off when you consider where Tennessee has been? I don't get the dismissal of it from opposing fan bases outside of just the fact they hate Tennessee, which I get. I hate your school too, but it is what it is to me. I think he's shown that he's really good. And I think if you're another SEC school right now, you got to be looking at hoping Josh Heupel doesn't get defensive players. That's how I will put it. You better be recruiting every defensive player you can to keep him away from Tennessee, because if Josh Heupel gets the defense, that's going to be a hard team to stop.
Well, I'm going to take on the Tennessee-Kentucky comparison by defending Mark Stoops, but in defending Mark Stoops, it's going to basically make the case for why Tennessee is a much different situation than Kentucky, because I think Mark Stoops has done an exceptional job at Kentucky, and as Charlie pointed out, took him 7 years to get to a 10-win football team. They immediately drew back to 7 wins, and they jumped back. They had another 10-win season this past 2 years ago, 2021. And, even during the time Mark Stoops was coaching up those recruiting classes that were ranking somewhere around 20 to 30 in the country to 8 and 9 win teams, and then a couple times to 10 wins with a postseason win. Tennessee was recruiting. Tennessee, even with dysfunction in the program, even with not the guy, Jeremy Pruitt, excellent defensive coordinator, showed that he was not ready or may never be ready for a head coaching job. Those are two different roles in terms of running a program and just taking a unit and being a coach and coordinator. That Tennessee out-recruited Kentucky all that time that Stoops was really doing a great job coaching up and developing players, that Tennessee was still marching out more talented teams. And now that they've got a legitimate head coach, the ceiling is so much higher at Tennessee than it is Kentucky.
Yeah, and I always look at just resources this schools have. Kentucky has all of that support for its basketball team. They are elite in basketball, even if Calipari's kind of on the downswing of his scene. Like, they have donors who are willing to put down tons of money to get dudes in the door, and they have donors that are willing to pay for excellent facilities and stuff like that. They don't have that for football, not in the same way, not with the same fervor. And in football, like Tennessee is resource wise, even when they were terrible, resource wise, Tennessee was still elite. I mean, it's one of the most loyal, crazy, insane fan bases in America, with one of the biggest stadiums in America. And, you know, the donor base is honestly a little too involved sometimes, and too wants too much to say in what happens with the program. And so I've always, even in the darkest times of Tennessee, I just said, if they can get the leadership back that they needed, a good coach, a good AD, a good president, just good administration, it's all there. You just, because at the end of the day, that's what you have to have. Where like a Vandy, they're never going to have that. They just aren't. They're never going to be able to do that. Their best season is 9 wins. And it kind of steps down from there. And so like Tennessee is, in terms of resources, in that same league with Georgia and Alabama. I think where they have a tougher time is that Georgia, I mean, the recruiting that comes out of that state is just ridiculous. Like in Florida too, which is really, thankfully, there are like 3 powerful schools in Florida that all sort of siphon off players to each other. And Georgia gets in on that too. But I mean, Georgia they just sit in that catbird seat because so much great talent comes out of that state, and they just have been taking it all. And Tennessee used to, some of those teams in the 90s were like built on dudes from the state of Georgia. And that's not going to happen now. Not with the way that Georgia is winning right now. And so you do have that disadvantage, even though you are resource-wise, you are on the same exact level as schools like that. You're always going to be butting your head up against things like that recruiting. So with that said, a guy like Josh Heupel to me is the absolute perfect solution to that, because he, with his coaching and his scheme on offense, that's where he beats you. He can take a set of players that has less talent than you and I don't think anybody believes that Tennessee had more talent than Alabama this season. They didn't. No one thinks that. And they beat Alabama. That's how Josh Heupel beats you. And so I think you give Josh Heupel 5 years of top 5 classes, maybe even, I mean, theoretically, if Nico is as good as advertised, maybe it would be Heupel's 4th year. No, fifth year at Tennessee could be his best year. And if he's docking top 10 recruiting classes that whole time, I think they'll be right back to being a force to be reckoned with. But as we all know, this is Tennessee. Things can go flying off the tracks at any moment. So time will tell if that really comes to fruition. But I think as of right now, it appears they may have the right dude.
Charlie, before we let you go, I should have hit you up on this one when we were talking schedules, but who would be your 3 designated foes for Tennessee?
I would go Alabama and Vandy. Honestly, I wish it wasn't Vandy, but they are, 2.5 hours down the road in the same state. It just kind of is what it is. Of course, I'm a huge advocate for kicking them out of the SEC. I think they're completely unfit to be in this conference at all. They don't care about sports, and it shows. But if they're going to stay in the SEC, it has to be Vandy. And then I would say Kentucky, because it's such a bitter rivalry in basketball and football too, even though they've beaten Tennessee like 3 times in the last 35 years. But still, Kentucky thinks they can win most years. And so that's who I would probably choose. I mean, the thing that I hope comes out of it is that the weak non-conference games get done away with. That's what I want to see. Georgia Tech, Kentucky, Louisville. Ones that just stop. We don't need to do that. 9 conference games.
You're going to get rid of those rivalries?
In football. Now,
Really?
In basketball, you can't get rid of Kentucky, Louisville. But in football, who cares? Kentucky, Louisville. Make Kentucky play another team that's in the SEC. And especially Georgia Tech. I mean, that's the one that I look at, that it just, so stupid that they're allowed to play that game every year. That should be outlawed by the SEC. It's an embarrassment. But I'm very much I could make an argument for Florida State too, just because I don't just play more SEC games, play conference games.
We'll play more SEC games, but still keep all those rivalries. I'm a big rivalry guy, and I think those are legit rivalries. And this Georgia Tech Georgia situation is obviously they're not in the same universe at this point, but you can go back 7 or 8 years, and that's a competitive game.
But I think where you'll run into problems with that if it goes to 9 games like everybody's thinking it will, is that you're gonna have Florida playing Florida State, and Florida State, it looks like with Norvell, they're on the up. You're gonna have Florida going, hey, we're locked into this thing, and we have to play 9 conference games and play Florida State now.
Sure.
Nah, I think you're gonna run into that. Of course, Georgia's gonna want to play Georgia Tech every year because they can beat their head in. But I think that's where you would run into problems, is that they South Carolina Clemson. Now, great classic rivalry that Clemson usually wins at this point. But if you're South Carolina, are you not going, we have to play 9 conference games and are, probably one of the best teams in America every year? It'll be interesting. I'll be interested to see how that goes, because I've always just thought those were so out of place in the final week of the season. They just, everybody else is playing a conference game, but you're playing this sort of off the map, ultimately for both of those teams inconsequential in the conference race. I would say make it where Florida and Florida State play once every 3 years, home and home. Great. But outside of that, you could do away with them. I don't really care. And I know I'm probably in a minority there, but that's how I feel.
Okay. Well, that's why we got you here. Charlie Burris, A to Z Sports, Big Orange Podcast. Charlie, we appreciate you stopping by.
Absolutely. This was fun.
Enjoy the madness.
All right. I'll see you later, Mark.
See ya. All right, let's keep it rolling. And perfect segue here, since we talk so much Kentucky attached to Tennessee. Well, Kevin McGuffey's here. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, Mark. Gee, what do you want to talk about? I just got in on the last few minutes of this, okay. But there's all kinds of stuff we could jump on there if you'd like.
Well, let's get down to it. So first of all, we're going to let everyone know we're talking to Kevin McGuffey, last word on college football. Please check out our segments that we posted recently, breaking down the Kentucky offense. We will get to the defense here soon, but we've looked at the Kentucky offense, and those are posted on the SEC channel. Kevin joins us on a regular basis. And again, the fine folks there at Last Word on College Football have been extremely good to me through the years. And so, Kevin, well, it starts this way. I served it up to Charlie and others because the SEC is, of course, working on a schedule format to adjust to the entries of Oklahoma and Texas. It's most likely going to be a 9-game schedule where there are 3 permanent opponents. So the SEC at this point, the conference has delivered to each school their 3 selections. And then they're waiting for the athletic directors to give their feedback. And there's going to be a give and take. And at some point, probably at the SEC meetings, we're going to come to a consensus, whether that's an easy consensus or not. Everybody's, of course, got their own agenda, right? Whether the motive is we want to play the easiest schedule possible, or the motive is we want to play these rivals, or the for the conferences, we want to make the most money. So we want to set up the best games. But let's start with this. Who do you think it will be the 3 for Kentucky? And are you in agreement with those 3?
I've seen so many different things. I know the guy from Sports Illustrated. I can't remember the three teams right now, but if you asked me if I was Kentucky, I would say, or if I could do it, I would say Tennessee, Vandy, and then either South Carolina or Missouri is like the 3 schools that I would like to play every year. And I'd also like to say that if you've seen anything online, UK, Mitch Barnhart is fighting. They still want an 8-game schedule. They don't want to go to 9. I don't know if they're the lone holdout or how. I mean, I don't think. I think at this point, the 9 games is just inevitable. But if I was Kentucky, that would be the 3 teams I would choose. Like I said, I saw one that had, I think it was Georgia, Mississippi State, and like Oklahoma or something, which is just like, seems kind of like way out of left field there. I also think to the guy you're talking to before, I could see if they go to 9 games, I could see the Kentucky Louisville football series ending because the Cats, you and I have talked about scheduling a lot. Kentucky always has those 3 quote gimmies, although they're not always gimmies, but those 3 games every year that they schedule expecting those 3 wins. Now they have dominated the series recently against Louisville, but like I said, for me, I would say Tennessee, Vandy, and then either South Carolina or Missouri would be my 3 schools. So
I've got no argument with that. I am in the process of trying to map all that out for the SEC and come up with my recommendations, post a video. So be looking out for that, everyone. But and for anyone that's out there that either in the case of the ACC, they've released theirs, they're going to go to that format coming up this season. And it's easy to pick out like one school and say, oh, they screwed it up. They should have had X, Y, and Z instead of A, B, and C. But you have to do the entire schedule because it's a domino impact on each schedule. So you can't just pick on because there are always going to be difficult fits because some schools have one legitimate rival. Others have 2. Others have 3. I got to say, in the SEC Eastern Division, there are probably more legitimate rivalries there than in any division in college football.
Right. And just sorry, I found the article I was looking for. Ross Dellinger of SI had Kentucky's permanent 3: Arkansas, Georgia, Mississippi State. Chip Patterson, CBS Sports, says Florida, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt. I could see that one too because Kentucky obviously has a history with Florida. And then there's a guy from USA Today, Florida, Mississippi State, and Vandy. And then SEC Mike has Mississippi, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt. Now I could see you could make the case for Mississippi State because that's been Kentucky's permanent West opponent for the last 15, 20 years, it seems like. So those would all be possibilities as well. But like I said, if you gave me the choice, that's the 3 teams I would pick, and then we'll see where it goes from there.
I just don't see how you don't go Tennessee, Kentucky. That was the first thing I wrote down.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've got it right here. I'm not ready to completely release this. I got to review it. But Tennessee, I went Bama, Vandy, Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
When I went Kentucky, Tennessee, Vandy, South Carolina. And it seems to work with everybody else that I've got down here. So
yeah, no, I'd be 100% on board with that one. Like I said, I didn't see Arkansas, some of these others, like I said, we'll see how it all plays out. But that's where I'm sitting. And like I said, I think the 9 games you'll see, if at all possible, you'll probably see them in the series with Louisville. I may be wrong, but that's just me speculating as we're talking on this Tuesday afternoon.
And Kevin, I am so amused by what Nick Saban had to say. So I don't know if you saw this quote, but Brian Kelly basically said, and I don't know if he's just kind of talking tough or he knows it doesn't really matter what he says, that he's going to be given 3 opponents. So he might as well talk tough. But he said, I came to the SEC to play the best, give me the best schedule, give me the best teams. We want to play Alabama. And it looks like LSU, as recommended by the conference, is going to get Alabama, Texas A&M, and Ole Miss. Now, Saban, this is hilarious. And I read it earlier, so I'm not going to take everyone through the same deal, but he's always been an advocate of the 9-game schedule in conference. And now you add 2 more teams to get to 16. And I think it's difficult to justify a championship with 8 games played against 15 other possible opponents. So you're missing 7 games, 7 teams. But, Saban makes the comment, they're giving us Tennessee, Auburn, and LSU. I don't know how they came to that decision.
Well, Auburn, I think, is Tennessee and Auburn, I think, are easy just because those are natural rivalries. But
Yeah, that's exactly, those are just obvious selections, the first two for sure. So it's just funny for him to pop off and say, I don't know where they came up with that. Like, it's just a mystery.
right. So the funny thing about it, I think, just talking about the way the schedules are now, Texas A&M and Missouri has been in the SEC since 2012, I believe.
Yep.
And Kentucky has, Kentucky's yet. I think it's supposed to be either next year or 2025. Kentucky's only played Texas A&M once, and and that was at College Station. And I think they'll finally, unless obviously the 9-game schedule changes everything, I think it's next year or 2025. They finally get to host, Texas A&M. That'll be after them being in the conference for 12 years already. So, which I think is kind of crazy, but that's just, another weird scheduling thing there.
All right, Kentucky going to spring practice. What stands out to you as some of those things that you're going to be watching out for in the next month or so?
Spring practice started yesterday. And I think, as we've talked about, Kentucky's not going to have a spring game this year. They're installing a new field at Kroger Field. I still want to call it Commonwealth Stadium, but that's okay. So they're going to have like a special fan day with all kinds of things, activities where you can come out and see the team. That's going to be on April 1st. So that's a date for UK fans to keep in mind. And then obviously the biggest thing is everybody's kind of following Devin Leary. He practice. We said he was going to practice. Stoops reiterated that he was out there with the first team yesterday. He's on, to use like a baseball term, they called it like a pitch count. He's only going to throw so many. They didn't say the number, but he's only going to throw so many passes, each day, as he's still trying to get over that, pectoral injury that he had that ended his season last year. So obviously his, how he gels with Liam Cohen, and by all reports, just even in one day, Cohen, it's like they picked up right where they left off, in 2021. Of course, Cohen was here with Will Levis, and they had such a great season. Then Cohen went to the NFL with the Rams, and Kentucky's offense struggled last year, and obviously the Rams' offense struggled last year too. But a lot of that had to do with injuries. But as you said, you see, 6 games. Leary played in 6 games. Then you go back. Obviously, what Kentucky fans are hoping for is what you're seeing there in 2021, where he was a finalist for the Johnny Unitas Award with the 35 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. So, I mean, that's those are some pretty impressive numbers. And if he can pull that off in the SEC this year, Kentucky fans are going to be really, really happy. That's the biggest thing I think everybody's kind of watching, is just to see how how Leary, how quickly he gels with Cohen's offense and with receivers. We talked about Kentucky has their top 5 receivers back from last year, if you throw in running back Juton McClain. So you have, you got Barry and Brown, freshman All-American. You got Dane Key. You got Tavion Robinson coming back for another year. How quickly you see what Wan'Dale Robinson did 2 years ago here in this Liam Cohen offense, had the greatest season ever by a wide receiver at Kentucky. So everyone, you can't help but not be excited right now. But like I said, everybody's kind of watching Leary, and then obviously other things, the offensive line. Kentucky made upgrades to the offensive line because, you're obviously, we learned last year, your quarterback's not going to be if your quarterback's running for his life half the game, then his stats, that's obviously going to negatively affect your stats and how the game goes. So that's another thing that's, as far as the offense goes, that people will be watching. And I do want to throw out just real quick something that was announced today. The Pro Day, Kentucky's Pro Day, will be Friday, March 24th. And I guess you can call this the Will Levis effect, for lack of a better term. The SEC network is going to broadcast it live this year. So with and then the NFL network is going to be there too, but I think it's going to be like on their online thing. So there's 11 guys who are going to be taking part in it that were announced, and of course headlined by Levis, who of course was at the Combine last weekend and got clocked with 59 mile an hour 59-mile-an-hour pass. So, which is, it's pretty impressive. I think Richardson had a 60. Except I don't think Levis did anything to hurt his draft stock. I think the recent things I've seen, the Raiders with that 7th pick seem to be. I see Levis's name pop up there a lot with that pick, so I think it'd be a good landing spot for him. But circling back, we're all kind of on a Devin Leary watch right now, and just seeing how the spring goes, how he progresses in Cohen's system, and how quickly they gel with the receivers.
All right, Kevin. So they started practice yesterday. All right. Very good. Well, certainly let us know if anything pops up. There's any kind of news or big updates out of Lexington.
I sure will.
Appreciate you being here. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, thanks for stopping by. As the previous person said before, this is a lot of fun. This would be kind of cool to hopefully keep doing this. Doing this on a weekly basis where everybody can just jump in for a few minutes and update on things, and just or we can just sit around and talk about scheduling. So
that's it. Oh, whatever's going to get people fired up, and it seems to be scheduling right now and realignment, but that doesn't really impact the SEC or Kentucky right now. So
no, not yet, but who knows? They may try to go steal some more. Not steal. Who knows? Maybe they won't be happy. They need more teams or something. I don't know. Eventually, it's just all going to be like 3 super conferences, right? So
it's headed that way.
Yeah,
it may be. All right, Kevin. Appreciate you being here.
Yes, sir, Mark. Thank you very much for having me on, and look forward to coming on and talk to you again soon.
Yep. Have a good week.
All right. Thank you. You too.
Kevin McGuffey, last word on college football. We always appreciate Kevin stopping by, breaking down the Cats for us. What we will do here is drop the link in the chat. I will take a call, and then we will wrap it up from there. So if anyone would like to join the show and talk some SEC football, otherwise, I'm going to get back at it because some of these conversations have given me some ideas for some videos. So be looking out for those. In the meantime, here at 5 o'clock, we have a video release. Premieres at 5 o'clock. And that's going to be on the Big Ten realignment possibilities. Possibilities. It's not a prediction. It's basically what I like to do is say, hey, if the Big Ten adds X, Y, and Z, then this is the way they should format the conference. This is what they should attack scheduling. And this is the championship format that they should employ. So we took some of the rumored additions to the Big Ten, and we delivered that. And again, that's at 5 p.m. Eastern time. You're going to see the premiere of that video. Randy's on the line. Randy, what's going on?
Hey, buddy. How are you? Hang on one second here while I clean up my audio on my end.
No worries. It sounds good.
Oh, there we go. I wanted to make sure I was watching because when StreamYard pops up, it opens a new window separate from YouTube. So I got to make sure I kill that audio, so I'm not like confused over here. But yeah, this has been a fun show. I forgive the absence of a camera today. We got a lot in flux happening over here. This is just easier.
No worries.
No
worries.
So this has been a good show. This has been fun. Cool. I've enjoyed listening in to the various representatives and stuff like that, and it's been good. Like the last guest there, I was unaware that Kentucky wasn't having a spring game this year. So, walk away a better man.
Yes, it's always good to be informed.
Yep. So. Lots of good discussion in the chat. I appreciate everyone who had something to offer up there, and I'm not coming to the table with a whole lot to break out. I know you've been on almost 2 hours now. I'm not trying to stretch you out here, but it's one of those things where I hope to be able to be here frequently. It'll just depend on whether or not I can be free. So it is fun though. It's a good show.
Good stuff. Well, thanks for stopping by, man.
Yeah, always. Is there anything else going on today, or is this kind of it? Is there anything tonight? I never can remember.
Well, we're all over the place. So we've got a video release at 5 o'clock on the Big Ten alignment, as I would see it if they add certain members. But in terms of live programming, we've got our Iowa Live show at 5:30 Eastern. We've got our Nebraska show at 7 Eastern.
Okay. All right. That's when I'm settling in. Those two shows, I knew there was something that usually pops up on my screen because as I settle in for my night at work, I see the live notifications and I'll dial it up and listen in
Nice.
while I'm banging away at the keys. But it's I think I've put this in the chat a couple times before, but I know that personally, I find it very useful when there is a repetitive live schedule, right? Like, so something I can bookmark and be like, okay, so Tuesdays we're going to talk whatever, whatever the topic is. So just, I think you asked input on that recently at some point.
Yeah.
So my feedback is I really prefer a set schedule, and obviously things happen and, you adjust where you have to. But I know that, again, for someone like me who sits down, for a regimented work schedule in the evenings, generally, if I know I can have the show in my ear, it just makes my night and, easier. So I know I can listen, but the notifications help with that also. But yeah, so that's my 2 cents on that.
Well, I would say, Randy, that if I had maybe cloned myself or something, I would like to have a call-in show every day at the same time, whether that was Monday through Friday at noon or at 6 p.m. or whatever the time. However, we've just got so many team channels to cover, and we've got team live streams for, I think, 10 teams. So by the time we knock all those out, and now I've added the Big Ten live show on Monday and the SEC on Tuesday. So other than that, yeah, it would be better to have a designated schedule for the rest. But
Oh, I completely understand. I'm currently, I'm currently a daddy of 2 under 8 and a full-time employee, and launching this venture on my own here. So I get it. You're just everywhere. But would you? I don't know the best way to ask this, but would you consider the Voice of College Football as having a flagship show? And if so, I guess maybe that's the one I would be referring to as having a set time.
well, that's a great point, and that's a great suggestion, and it's certainly something we've had in the past and probably need to implement in the future. And say, okay, Friday night, 8 o'clock Eastern, that's our flagship show, and however we would format that call-in show or otherwise, and
Right.
make that kind of the go-to for the week. Yeah.
Right. I guess that's what I'm referring to, because obviously we all have our varying interests in how much we want to pay attention to the other teams. And I frequent most of them, the Pac-12 show, because that's late at night. And I mentioned the others earlier. But, if there was a flagship show where anything's on the table, as far as the discussion, news of the day, week, whatever it is, that's the one that I would be certain that would be, oh yeah, this, Thursday nights for me, I'm off Thursday evenings. So Thursday nights, I know at 9 p.m. I can settle in and see what everybody else thinks and so on. So again, just one guy's opinion, but
No, it's
there you
great.
go.
I appreciate the suggestion, and we will take that into account. You can be sure of that. And yeah, we are looking to improve not just the product, but the schedule and where we offer various things. So taking all that into consideration.
Fantastic. Well,
Thanks,
I think it was
Randy.
a good show. Yeah. Look
Appreciate
forward to
that.
more.
Thanks for calling. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care.
It's our guy, Randy. I appreciate the encouragement, appreciate the suggestions. And again, we take all of your suggestions and recommendations into consideration. And we are looking to build a more formidable schedule. But we also have Patreon. We're going to serve up content there more so than we have in the past. So everybody who follows us on Patreon, all of our Voice of College Football community there, thank you for your loyalty, your support, and you will see more content there soon in the next, during this transition phase in the spring as we gear up for the summer and then on into the season. Certainly with spring football, you will start to see some changes there in regards to where various content is available. All right, right here at the Voice of College Football. Be back here next Tuesday at noon Eastern for the SEC show. We do the Big Ten show Monday at 6 Eastern time. Tonight, Iowa live at 5:30 Eastern, and Nebraska live at 7. So stay tuned for those shows coming up a little bit later tonight, right here at the Voice of College Football. Thanks for being here.